Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today we will take the second part of the adaptations, that is adaptation of organisms to temperature regimes. As you already know, in the last uh, time we have discussed regarding the part first of the adaptations, that is what are the adaptations, the concept, need and their types. So let us see how the organisms, that is both plants as well as the animals, they show their adaptations towards the temperature fluctuations, towards the low and high temperatures. Let us talk about and these adaptations of organisms towards the temperature in today's video. First, we must know what is the temperature. As temperature, it actually refers to the degree of hotness or coldness of a substance. And this temperature, it has a significant effect upon the activities as well as the growth of the organisms. Let us see how these organisms, they actually show the adaptations, they show the adjustments towards these temperature variations, towards the temperature fluctuations. Uh, First, we will see the adaptation of plants. Adaptation. Adaptation of plants to temperature variations. The temperature has the significant impact upon the various activities of the plants. Now, let us try to understand how these plants, they actually show the adjustments, they show the adaptations towards the temperature, towards the increasing temperature, or towards the to high temperature and low temperature, how these plants they adjust themselves. First, the during the low temperature. Basically, when the temperature is very low, when there is extreme cold conditions, actually these plants, they produce the antifreeze proteins at the lower temperatures. This is produced in order to protect themselves from the formation of the ice crystals, whether they may be intracellular or the extracellular. यानी कि जो if we will talk what happens at the low temperatures in case of the plants basically they secrete the antifreeze proteins. These antifreeze proteins, they have the tendency, they prevent the intra as well as extracellular ice crystals, as these ice crystals, they actually can inhibit, or they can actually disturb, or they can inhibit the activities of the enzymes. तो at जब temperature dip होता है, at that temperature special type of proteins which are called the antifreeze proteins, they are secreted. अगर ये proteins ये plants produce नहीं करेंगे, form नहीं करेंगे, तो उससे क्या होगा? The plant may suffer with the cold injuries, it may suffer with the frost as well as the chill injuries. So इसको avoid करने के लिए plant, they actually produce these antifreeze proteins which avoids the crystal for ice crystals, which avoids the formation of these ice crystals. तो at high temperature क्या होता है? At high temperatures, the plants, they actually produce the heat shocking proteins. These heat shocking proteins, they actually protects the plant from the denaturation or degradation of the enzymes, and it prevents the plants from the formation of inactivated protein complexes, these heat shocking proteins. So this is anti-freeze proteins and heat shocking proteins. And plants, they can also avoid the excessive heat or the excessive hot conditions or the extreme hot conditions through the process of transpiration, which the actually the loss of water in the form of vapors through its aerial parts. So, and apart from that, there are the plants, they can also uh, limit the absorption of light during high temperatures. How they can reduce this absorption of light? Through these scales, through the leaf hairs, and as well as by the waxes. And there are some plants who actually shows the rolling of the leaves during the midday or scorching sun और स्क्रोचिंग हीट के दौरान दे अपने मतलब जो इनके लीव्स होते हैं इनको रोल करते हैं, इस तरह वो अवॉइड करते हैं मतलब एक्सेसिव मतलब जो कि सन रेज को मतलब आते हैं इनको वो बिल्कुल कम करते हैं, मतलब कम एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं बाय रोलिंग दीज लीव्स। तो इसी तरह हम देखते हैं कि पर्टिकुलरली जो डेजर्ट प्लांट्स होते हैं इनके अंदर क्या होता है, दे possess द थिक fleshy leaves which is having the sunken stomata in order to adjust themselves with the scorching temperature, with the scorching heat or the excessive hot conditions. So this is how plants they adjust or they show the adaptations towards the temperature regime. Now let us see how the animals adopt themselves to temperature. In case of the animals, we see depending how they actually maintain their body temperature with the surrounding temperature, there are two classes of animals, or there are two categories of the animals, that is homeotherms or warm-blooded animals and the poikilotherms or the cold-blooded animals. So far as the homothermy is concerned, homeothermy basically the homothermy, here the animals they are able to maintain the constant internal body temperature, to maintain their constant internal body temperature. They are also known as warm-blooded animals. It doesn't matter how much the surrounding or how much the environmental temperature is, whether it is cold or whether it is hot. In all these cases, these warm-blooded animals, they are able to maintain their constant body temperature. Let us see how these warm-blooded animals are able to maintain their constant body temperature during the extreme cold conditions or during the extreme hot conditions, that is scorching heat. Let us see first how these animals, these homotherms or warm-blooded animals, are able to maintain their constant body temperature during excessive heat. As you know, during the summer season or during the summer periods, there is more temperature or there is excessive, there are excessive hot conditions, or are scorching, there is scorching temperature, scorching heat rather. तो उस दौरान क्या होता है कि जो प्लांट्स हैं इनको actually to cope, actually to adjust, to show the adaptations towards this excessive heat, how these plants behave, or how what are the various adjustment which are shown by the plants during these extreme hot conditions. देखो extreme hot conditions में क्या होता है बेसिकली जो हम ये मतलब अगर हम बात करेंगे कि how these warm blooded animals they are able to maintain their constant body temperature during the excessive heat. क्या होता है कि जो मतलब सुपरफिशियल ब्लड वेसल्स होते हैं दे गेट डायलेटेड, उस दौरान ये डायलेट होते हैं क्योंकि डायलेशन से क्या होता है कि जो यहाँ पे ब्लड फ्लो आता है, मतलब जो ब्लड फ्लो होता है दे कम टू द सरफेस ऑफ द स्किन, ठीक है। तो उससे क्या होता है कि जब इस स्किन के सरफेस को मतलब से टच करता है बिल्कुल ये ब्लड, उससे जो इसके अंदर एक्सेसिव हीट है दैट इज डिसिपेटेड टू द एटमॉस्फेयर और टू द सराउंडिंग्स। इस तरह अंदर का टेम्परेचर जो है वो बिल्कुल कम होता है। इसी तरह ड्यूरिंग द hot conditions the sweat glands they get stimulated in order to produce the sweat, and sweatness you know that also produces the coldness. As a result of this sweatening the body temperature gets lowered and down, ठीक है। तो एक और प्रोसेस हमें देखने को मिलते हैं इन केस ऑफ दीज मतलब हाँ how these warm-blooded animals they maintain their body temperature during the excessive hot conditions. उस दौरान क्या होता है कि जो hairs and feathers in case of the birds and the mammals होते हैं they actually become flat, they become flat and close to the body surface, and as a result of this there is no air accumulated, and the incoming radiations they are radiated away, and which also actually help us in keeping the body temperature low. This is another way by which these warm blooded animals they can maintain their body temperature during the excessive hot conditions, ठीक है। एक और चीज हम इसमें देखते हैं कि मेटाबॉलिक रेट जो होती है दैट इज लोअर डाउन during the hot conditions. जब metabolic rate that is lessened or that gets lowered, and as a result of this lower amount or there is low production of the energy, है ना, तो heat is produced very less. So in case of dogs and cats they show the process of panting, and by this panting they actually cool down they actually make their bodies मतलब cool, or they actually take away the excessive heat from their body. This is how these warm-blooded animals they actually they adjust themselves during the excessive or extreme hot conditions, and during the extreme cold conditions, when there is chilly temperature, when the temperature of the surrounding is very low, at that time how these warm-blooded animals they adjust themselves. During the extreme cold conditions the warm-blooded animals actually they are the superficial blood vessels they get constricted, ठीक है ना, there is constriction, there is narrowness of these superficial blood vessels, and as a result of this less heat is dissipated to the surroundings, heat is conserved inside the body, and apart from that the metabolic rate that is increased, यानी कि there is increase in the body metabolism. तो एक और चीज इसमें ये है कि जो hairs and feathers in case of birds and mammals होते हैं they become erect or they get raised so that there is there much air is retained between the body surface and these hairs and feathers, and which actually acts as the insulation layer and prevents the loss of the heat from the body towards the into the surroundings. So this is how these warm-blooded animals are able to adjust themselves during the extreme cold conditions and during the extreme hot conditions. Now let us see how the what are the poikilothermy. This is another category of the animals which are actually they are not able to maintain their constant body temperature, but their temperature varies as per the temperature of the environment. They actually their body temperature is always the same, which is to that of that which is that of the environment. इनका बॉडी टेम्परेचर जो होता है वो इतना ही होता है जो इनके सराउंडिंग में होता है. If we will see पाइक्लोथर्म्स वो वाटर में भी होता है, इक्वेटिक पाइक्लोथर्मी भी होती है एंड टेरेस्ट्रियल पाइक्लोथर्मी भी होती है. इक्वेटिक पाइक्लोथर्मी में जो एक्सचेंज ऑफ हीट होती है, जो हीट होती है दैट इज एक्चुअली एक्सचेंज बाय कंडक्शन और कन्वेक्शन के जरिए से. लेकिन जहाँ तक इन्वायरमेंट का जिस थर्मल इक्वेटिक इन्वायरमेंट का ताल्लुक है, इट इज़ मोर और लेस कांस्टेंट. इसमें इतनी चेंज इतनी ज़्यादा फ्लक्चुएशंस देखने को नहीं मिलती है क्योंकि although there occurs some seasonal change that too occurs at the surface layers in case of a lake. जो ऊपर वाली सतह होती है सरफेस लेयर्स होते हैं इनमें फ्लक्चुएशन होती है, लेकिन जो लोअर लेवल होता है वहाँ पे वेरिएशन नहीं इतनी मतलब वेरिएशन नहीं हम देखते हैं. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड जो टेरेस्ट्रियल पाइक्लोथर्मी होती है, टेरेस्ट्रियल इन्वायरमेंट में जो मतलब यहाँ पे जो थर्मल इन्वायरमेंटल होता है, मतलब जो टेरेस्ट्रियल थर्मल इन्वायरमेंट होता है दैट शोज दैट इज नॉट स्टेबल, इट शोज मच फ्लक्चुएशंस. तो एक्चुअली जब कोल्ड मतलब जब हीट जब सराउंडिंग का टेम्परेचर टेरेस्ट्रियल इन्वायरमेंट पे कम होता है तो उस वक्त क्या करते हैं एनिमल्स, ये क्या करते हैं, ये एक्चुअली दे रिड्यूस द इवापोरेशन, actually they reduce the heat loss from their body, but they increase the metabolic activities or metabolic rate is increased, and as well as the heat gain due to radiations that is increased. ठीक है ना. तो these are the various adaptations which are shown by these warm blooded and the cold blooded animals towards the temperature. There is one more phenomena which we observe in case of the animals while showing the adjustment towards these temperature fluctuations. There is one more phenomenon, hibernation. Hibernation, basically there are many animals which actually they undergo the period of dormancy during the extreme cold conditions. In order to avoid the extreme cold conditions, particularly during the winters, they undergo dormancy. That means they become inactive. So this hibernation, basically it is periodic and it is seasonal. It is usually shown towards, or it is shown usually in the winters, in the harsh winters when the temperature is very low, when there is a freezing temperature. So during that during these periods the animals they undergo this hibernation, which is also called the winter sleep. तो इसको अवॉइड, इन ऑर्डर टू एस्केप फ्रॉम दीज कोल्ड कंडीशंस द एनिमल्स दे वेंट or they undergo the hibernation. Now what are the various characters are this so far this hibernation is concerned, it may be true hibernation and it is sometimes pseudo hibernation. True hibernation, it is basically a regular type of the hibernation which we usually observe in the frogs and the reptiles. But on the other hand, pseudo hibernation, it is shown by some carnivorous animals. This is sometimes called it is sometimes referred as the carnivore hibernation or carnivorous hibernation. Now, what are the various characteristics which are shown by the animals when they undergo this process of this hibernation. During the process of the hibernation, the animals, they find some secluded places. They actually and hide themselves in the crevices, in the burrows, in the mud. तो अपने आप को बिल्कुल ये छुपाते हैं, ये बिल्कुल डोमेंट पीरियड में चले जाते हैं. एंड ड्यूरिंग द हाइबरनेशन द एनिमल्स डज नॉट मूव. The hibernating animals, they do not move, they do not feel, they do not feed rather, they do not actually, the metabolic rate that is loud, the heart rate that is also loud, the respiratory rate that also gets lowered down during these periods. And during the hibernation, the reserved fats and the glycogen is utilized to provide the necessary energy. ठीक है. And apart from that, the physiological activities of the thyroid and adrenal glands, that is lessened. So these are the various characters which are shown by these hibernating animals when they undergo the winter sleep. And there is one more phenomenon which we observe in case of the animals, that is estivation. Basically, there are many animals which avoid the scorching temperature, which actually avoid the excessive heat periods during the summer seasons, and they also undergo the period of dormancy, which is called the estivation. Estivation is sometimes called as the summer sleep. And this is why why it is called the summer sleep. This is because here the animals, they undergo the dormancy during the summer period, that is hot and humid conditions के दौरान. And इस estivation में क्या होता है, the animals which undergo this estivation, they are known as the estivators. ठीक है. इसके अलावा हम एक्चुअली देखते हैं कि जो मतलब इसके अलावा हम देखते हैं एनिमल्स में विंटर एग्स भी हम देखते हैं. व्हाट आर दीज विंटर एग्स? Actually, the winter eggs, these are the eggs which can withstand the harsh cold conditions of the winter season, or they can withstand with the cold of the winter. So they are actually, they possess the thick shells and they possess the protective coverings around them, and they remain dormant during this period. The moment the favorable conditions gets resumed, they actually become active and they start the process of fertilizing, or they actually start the process of hatching etc. तो यहाँ पे हम देखते हैं कि इनको हम विंटर एग्स कहते हैं. ये डोरमेंट रहते हैं ड्यूरिंग द विंटर सीजन. इनके एडॉप्टेशन क्या होते हैं? दे पोजेस द हार्ड शेल्स, दे पोजेस द थिक शेल्स, एंड एज वेल एज दे पोजेस द प्रोटेक्टिव कवरिंग्स अराउंड देम. तो इस तरह हम एक और फिनोमेना भी देखते हैं, मतलब इनको हम कहते हैं थर्मल माइग्रेशन. Thermal migrations, many mammals and birds, particularly, they actually they show the migrations when during the extreme cold conditions and during the extreme hot conditions. They do not find the favorable conditions for themselves, and as a result of this, they actually move from their original places to some other places where they find the favorable conditions and adjust themselves there till the favorable conditions are resumed in their original place, and at that time they move back towards their original destinations, towards their original dwelling places. So this is known as the thermal migration. Temperature due to the change in temperature, this is migration due to the change in temperature from one place to another place. So there is one more type of phenomenon which is shown by the animals towards these temperature regimes or towards the temperature variations. It's known as a cyclomorphosis. Cyclomorphosis. Cycle of morphosis, basically these are the cyclic as well as the seasonal changes which we observe in the different parts of the different animals. For example, if we will take the डेफिनिया, तो इसमें क्या होते हैं, देयर इज एक्चुअली देयर occurs a change in the shape of the head. The head is round, or the head is round from mid summer to मतलब स्प्रिंग टू मिड समर तक जो हेड है वो राउंड होता है, एंड फ्रॉम दिस मिड समर से लेकर स्प्रिंग तक जो हेड की शेप होते हैं, इट बिकम्स हेलमेट शेप. And this is what we see uh, in case of the animals, how they can adopt, how they can adjust themselves towards the temperature variations, towards the temperature regime. How the plants are able, how the plants they show the adaptations towards the temperature variations, as well as how the animals are able to show the adaptation towards the temperature variations. This is all regarding towards this is all regarding today's topic, that is adaptation of organisms towards the temperature. Today we will conclude here. Fi amanillah. Thanks.